Hello everyone, David and Haring here. So in this video we're going to talk about doing what you do in just about every programming language when you're learning it, which is how do you print hello world. So let's do that real quick. We're going to start Rebol, and it's really just as simple as this. Print hello world. And there you go. I could stop here, but let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit more and see some variations of this, as well as introduce the Rebol's internal help system. So, how else can we print hello world? Well, let's do this right here. So we got the same result. So what are we looking at here? Without going into a lot of detail about what I've just introduced, the square brackets, whenever you have something in square brackets, that's a block in Rebol. A block can hold Rebol words. A block can hold data, or a block can hold code. In this case, the block is holding code. And in order to execute that code, you have to use a command called do. So that's just a function, and you're basically saying do this block of code, and it does the print hello world. Another variation on this is to print and then use another function called form, and then within the Rebol block we have two values, two strings, and then we've done the same thing. Another variation on that, using form again, a function, we can just say hello and world, and we got that. So what's the difference between these last two examples? Well, the block, in the former one, the block held two strings. In this last one, the block held two words. But the purpose of form is to change these values into a human readable string. So how do we get information on what form does? I've introduced these functions. We've kind of gone way a little off track on the hello world example. But let's talk about Rebol's help system in closing here. So to get help on a function in Rebol, you can just type in help and then the name of the function. So let's do help print, and then it gives you some information about its usage, a description, and then some details on the arguments that print requires. And we're not going to go through that in detail at this time, but let's see about do now. Do's a little more complicated, but do lets you execute things like blocks, whole files, URLs. So if you've got a Rebol script file up on a web server somewhere, you can just do that URL, and we'll go into more detail on that in other videos. A little shortcut to do is just the question mark, or on help is just use the question mark. So you do question mark print as well, for example. So there we go. It's the same as saying help print, question mark print, same thing. And let's see that. Oh, so how do you get a list of all functions that are currently defined in Rebol? To do that, you use the what function. So what? So that gives you a list of all of Rebol's internal functions, and that's a pretty big list. There's several hundred things in there. I'm scrolling up here just to get to the top, and there we are. So what, the function what will tell you everything that's defined in Rebol. Now if you define a new function, that will end up at the bottom of this list. Okay. So we've talked about what. So in Rebol, functions can either be native values, or they can also be what's called mezzanine functions, which are really just functions that are in the interpreter, but they're not written in C, which is the native, which is what Rebol's written in, but they can be written in Rebol itself. So these mezzanine functions, you can get the source on them. So if we try, and this is with the function source, so if we try that with print, we'll see that print is a native function. But if we try that on the earlier what function that we just looked at, source, let's do source on what, you'll see that actually is a function written in Rebol. So that small group of functions that we've just introduced here really lets you look into the interpreter, see what's there, If it's a mezzanine function, you can actually look at the source code for it, and you can get help on any function. That's pretty much it for now. Thank you for watching.